Hello everyone, and welcome back to Hags. It's been quite a while, but this is season 2!
Hello everyone!
I'm gonna mute
Welcome
myself really
back to
quick because I can hear
Hags.
myself on the channel and that sounds awful. Okay. Also, thank you Crystal for reminding me in the chat, but I would like to inform you all that we use Sirenscape on this show. I don't play music because it distracts me and I'll spend the whole time skipping to the next song that I would prefer to hear, and that's not good for getting stuff done. And plus, I don't want to inflict my musical tastes on any of you, so I like to use Sirenscape, and today I think we're using Elven Vale Night sound set, which is, there's a fire, like a campfire thing, there's rain, it's quite nice. I like it a lot. It's great for crafting, and I'm going to take a sip of my tea. Sorry if you can hear me slipping my tea sometimes. Yeah, so I know a lot of you have never heard of craft tags before, but let me give you the history on this. I started doing this for fun last season. It was just me on my channel, and D&D was kind enough to host me. And I had to stop because I had a lot of work coming in, which was great because I'm pretty new at doing costumes for freelance work. And I've worked for D&D for a few years now, doing jobs for them, making costumes or props for when they go to PAX or Origins or things like that. You might have seen my Giant's helmet when Storm King's Thunder was released a couple years ago. I had a couple 8-foot axes that went with those. It was a lot of fun to build. I also last year did the goblins with Holly Conrad. We partnered on that and made a couple of goblin suits, which was really fun, and we premiered those at the Stream of Annihilation. And I also started craft tags kind of around the same time, and this has all been a huge learning experience for me, and just finding out what kind of workloads I can take and what kind of commitments I should or should not be making as far as, you know, producing this show and getting all my work done, and life takes a lot of time too. But yeah, I'm super glad to be back, and the season's going to be a little different. We're kind of streamlining things. Last season, I wasn't very good at streaming yet. It was my first venture into streaming, and I've learned a lot. I've gotten a lot better, hopefully. But we'll be putting all these on YouTube. I think D&D will be putting them on their YouTube channel now that this is their show. So there should be a VOD to see right after we end, and also on YouTube later. And if they don't handle that, I can always put it on my channel too. So no matter what, we'll get that figured out for you guys. Last season, you all were also very interested in starting a Discord. I have assessed my schedule, and I can confidently say I don't have time to keep track of a Discord channel, but if somebody wants to make one, like, feel free. Just tweet at Craft Hags that you've made one. Anybody who'd be willing to run that for me, like, go ahead. Please do it, because I want you guys to have a place where you can hang out and share your creations with each other. And I don't have to be a part of it because I can't always, like, I can't keep on top of all that stuff. And I'm still learning at getting better at that. So maybe someday I'll have gotten some more official venues figured out for those things. But till then, feel free to make your own and let me know. And I'll put it on the Craft Tags Twitter. I'll make sure everybody knows that that's the one. So if anybody wants to volunteer for that, you just get in touch with me. So this season is going to be quite different because we're going to be spending the whole season making one costume. Last season, it was a lot of fun. We got to bounce around and make some cool decorations. I showed you how to felt. I showed you how to get some sculpting and casting done. We played with silicone a little bit, and some of those episodes are sadly lost. And that's okay. It was a good test run for craft tags, and we had a lot of fun, but I'll be repeating a lot of the same information here, but in a little bit more of a structured setting. We won't just be making like a different craft every week. We'll be working from start to finish on one costume. And it's not NDA, so there's nothing I can't tell you about it right now, which is way better for me too. We're going to be working on my personal character from my D&D game with my friends. Her name is Scrummy. I've been on Acquisitions Intoxicated over at a Penny Arcade channel. They worked with me to brew a cider based on my character, which was super cool. And if you guys want to watch that, you can catch up on kind of what I've said about Scrummy on streams in the past. That's the main place where I've talked about her the most. But she's super fun to play. She's a grumpy little gnome who she's a warlock who serves Zugtmoy, so she's very mushroom influenced, and I'll be sharing her whole backstory on this episode and showing you how to plan a costume from just having a character sheet and like what kind of decisions you should be making and what things to think about and all that. So it's gonna be a lot less of a shit show, pardon my French, but instead of trying to like get something done every week, I can just be constantly updating the Twitter like I had intended to in the first place, and it'll all just be the same project. I won't have to worry about who's been caught up on what, and if you missed something, you can just go back and watch a previous episode and be completely caught up, and I feel like that's going to be a lot better for the community to interact with me and understand what I'm doing all the time, because a lot of time was spent with people coming in and being like, what are we doing today? And I had to like figure out how to catch them up all the time. So hopefully with this format, nobody will be lost, everything will make sense, and yeah, we'll have a lot more fun because you'll all get to see from start to finish all the bits and pieces, and I don't have to hide any of it from you because it's like spoilers or, you know, stuff like that. This is my personal character, and I'll be developing it right in front of you, making decisions, making changes, all the problems that come up when things don't go as planned. I can share them with you as well, and you'll totally understand why, or you know, how the whole process works from start to finish, and it'll be a lot better for me too. I'm gonna enjoy this a lot more instead of trying to scramble to fit things in with my schedule. This is my schedule now. Like, I'm doing craft tags. I've got other jobs too, but I don't have to figure out how to like find time to plan new fun little things for each week. So this will be so much less stressful for me too, which is why I had to quit last year. I think after like 12, 13 episodes maybe. I can't remember. But yeah, I'm really excited. This is going to be super cool, and I'm going to continue making changes to the tech. I kind of redid our overlay this year, but it'll look a lot more streamlined next week. I just wanted to make sure everything worked this week. I'm also going to be getting a new PC, hopefully. I'm currently running this off my poor little laptop, who's barely hanging on right now. So bear with me over these first few weeks while we get some of the kinks worked out. And feel free to tell me in the chat if I'm too loud, if music's too loud, anything like that. I'm also the only person running a stream except for the folks over at D&D who are just making sure the stream stays up. So thank you to them too for all your help and for having me on the D&D channel. I'm so excited. Like, this is a dream come true. Super cool. Also, whoever's running the D&D channel, I don't think I have mod status yet, and I don't know that I need it per se, but that might be helpful in the future. But yeah, let's get started. First off, I talked about Sirenscape. Everybody go look at Sirenscape.com. They are super affordable. They have so many sound sets. They're crazy good for just noises in the back of your game. Go play with them. They're super fun. And they add so much immersion to every game, and they're made for playing D&D with. Like, it's not for shows, but they're kind enough to let me use them on this show, which is where all the fun noises come from. Yeah, yay! Everybody go say hi to Sirenscape, and that's SYRIN Scape, and they're on Twitter and everything. But yeah, hi everybody in the chat. I've missed you all so much. I'm not gonna call out names because I don't want to mess up names or anything, but hello, I see you all. I missed you all. Oh my god. It's like all the friends are back together. I'm so happy. But yeah, let's get started here. First off, I'll show you where Scrummy started. This is Scrummy's original player sheet. I I went over to a friend's house several years ago, and this was the first time I'd played D&D in a long time. And I mean, this was also the first time I'd really played D&D. Like, the people I'd played D&D with before were not playing D&D right. And I know that, like, there are no rules as to how you're supposed to play D&D, but, like, they had missed the memo on how, like, you don't just go into a dungeon, you need to plan a story for your players, and like just walking into a dungeon and there being a monster is not D&D. Like, it's fun to create a plot for your players to, like, you gotta add interest. And like, thank you so much to my DM who introduced me to D&D in the first place, but they had not quite figured out like how to make it super fun yet, and that's not their fault. They were very new to DMing too. It's cool, but I'd never really gotten into D&D just because the people I'd played with hadn't really shown me a part of it that I really, really grasp onto. And the first time I played with my friend Richie, and you all know him as Richard Witters on Twitter, he's the art director for D&D, and the only reason I know him is because my husband got brought in for a Dungeons & Dragons concept push. He does concept art and a lot of Magic the Gathering art and stuff like that. And so I got to meet the D&D team and hang out with them for 3 weeks while we were at Wizards of the Coast and he was working. And then at nights we would hang out and play D&D sometimes. And I made this character just on a whim. Like, no planning. Just, I thought it was just gonna be so goofy. And I had really so minimal knowledge on D&D at the time, and so it's funny that this like weird character that I just kind of pulled right out of my butt like turned into this crazy cool character that I absolutely am in love with. I love playing Scrummy, and she has so much of me in her, and she is important to me, and like that's how I want you guys to start thinking of your characters if you're going to start designing and building for a character or somebody else's character even. Like, it's really important to get into why this character is so cool. Like, and this is where I'm going to start explaining Scrummy's backstory, so that you guys kind of understand where I'm pulling from when I start choosing colors and where I the textures she's got and things like that. Those are all, I'm not just like randomly choosing colors and textures and shapes. I have this whole backstory planned out, and I'm going to be basing all my little decisions off of my backstory. And so I'll kind of run you through her backstory super quick. She was a gnome. We don't know where she came from. She wandered away from her family very, very early in her life. She's too young to even remember how to get back home. And she gets down into the Underdark somehow. And she's just a normal gnome, like a wood gnome, I think. Nothing, like she's not a deep gnome. But she finds herself in Neverlight Grove, which is where the Myconids live. And not all Myconids, but there's a village called Neverlight Grove, and I learned about Neverlight Grove a lot more recently by reading Out of the Abyss. Chapter 5 is all Neverlight Grove, and if you want to learn more about Myconids and things like that, that's where those are. And I haven't even, I mean, I've just been skimming and trying to learn as much as I can to inform her backstory. And even if something in her backstory doesn't fit with what's in the book, like, who cares? This is D&D. You can make it whatever you want, and it doesn't have to be lore specific or make perfect sense or match up flawlessly, especially if your DM's okay with it. That's the only rule. But yeah, there's a lot of cool art in the book. You can kind of see a little bit of the color palette of Neverlight Grove. There's lots of purples and blues, and they specify in the book that that's kind of what the aura of the place looks like. Lots of purples and blues, and then some hot yellows for the phosphorescent glow of the mushrooms. And even if I'm getting that wrong, like, that's her backstory. I've made it up. It's cool. And you can do the same with any character you're working on. Uh, make up a rule, make up a reason for why you're doing something, and then stick to it. And that's all the justification you need for changing something to be exactly what you want. And so I'm going to go ahead and move my Photoshop down just a tad so you can see the whole gradient. I started this morning by taking a picture of myself, and you can see here's the outline of my body. I just took a picture in the mirror. You want to, I do this to start drawing shapes. And I, instead of trying to draw a perfect copy of my silhouette, I just took a picture with my phone, turned up the contrast as high as I could, and so I just ended up as a black thing. Cut myself out, and you can do this without Photoshop too. You can just take a picture on your phone and then like trace a piece of paper on your phone, and then you've got a cutout of you, and you can just like layer tracing paper on top of it and see what kind of shapes are going to look good on your body. And especially if you're trying to make yourself look really weird, like a different shape than you are. Like if I wanted to be like a 500-pound ogre, I'm going to need to add length to my legs probably to make myself taller, or pad out my shoulders, but not bury my head. Like my head has to be, you know, like, and instead of just kind of trying to do all this in your head, using using a program like this or drawing on top of your silhouette can be really helpful just to keep track of. We'll put this down here so you guys can see it. Just to keep track of what shapes you're making. And then when you want to start drawing out patterns for clothing pieces, you have at least some idea of how big they need to be. And that helps later too. But, so what we're going to do here is, I'm going to bring up some of the early sketches of Scrummy. This is the first one that I did. It's actually on the back of this character sheet. This was the thing I drew on the very first night. And so she's obviously got some padded armor here. That's what it says in the book. Like, it's the first thing it says that I had. And so I drew padded armor. And she also she stinks. She lives in the Underdark. She's been raised with myconids. And obviously mushrooms need decay and, you know, like dead things, fecal matter, stuff like that to grow with. So none of that has ever been gross to Scrummy. That's like where they create life. That's where they, you know, feed their young. Like, it's part of myconid life. And so she's gross. And that's the reason why she's never been raised to need to be clean or, you know, things like that. So she's going to have a lot of like grime and texture, and I knew that from the beginning. I also decided that since she serves Zugtmoy, she would have a familiar that's Zugtmoy-esque, and so I just drew some super quick little mushrooms growing on her, and they use their rapport spores is what they're called, but it's basically telepathy, and that's how mushrooms talk, or that's how myconids talk to other creatures. So I figured this guy didn't need a face. He's just my familiar, and he's got a mind and all that in there, but he's just a little patch of mushrooms. But yeah, she's got her little glowing orb. That's how she controls her magic. She's got a bag for some stuff. This is like a lily that was part of the quest we played that night, and I got it. And so I drew her doing that. But we're going to close that because I've obviously developed her a little bit. Here's the next drawing I did of Scrummy. This time she's got the hairstyle I had at the time. She's got some color now. I kind of started just throwing together like some shapes, and I've got these really cool jawbones laying around my house. And at the time I had decided I wanted to eventually do a Scrummy costume. So I wanted to make like some armor chest piece kind of thing out of these jawbones. I think they're elk jawbones that we just find them around here. There's tons of them. Uh, but yeah, I'm gonna, like, I knew I wanted to attach those to the front somehow, and then she just needed some big, kind of poofy, ill-fitting pants and some arm wraps. She's got, you know, mold on her. It's just part of living with myconids. And then some sort of thing down here, just leather shoe things. And that was the second time I ever drew Scrummy, but I started at least playing around with her designs. Then next, probably, I think last April, I drew this. And I wanted to really play with shapes. At this point, I knew that Scrummy was going to be pretty genderless, because she is a girl, but because she's raised with myconids and myconids don't have any concept of gender, I figured she probably wouldn't either. She wouldn't have seen any of the gender roles being played out, and so she's not, like, she doesn't hate that she's a girl or anything. She just has no concept of what that means. And so I didn't want her to look boyish or girlish, so I added like a skirt thing that kind of, it's going to have like a corset on the around the waist, and then kind of just drape down and be a little bit of a skirt shape, which adds just a little bit of movement, flowiness, it's just a general symbol for femininity at the same time. But I kept the pants underneath because I don't want a lot of skin showing down there, just because I don't think that would be comfortable for her, you know? So yeah, and then I found a really cool image on Pinterest of these little leather shoes, and I'll show you that when we get to the Pinterest part. But they were just these like little leather like sock things, like toe socks kind of, but they like tied up. I'll hopefully I have the picture in my Pinterest. It might be somewhere else, but if not, we'll find it, and I'll show you, because that's a big part of designing these characters too, is not just trying to come up with things out of your own brain, but looking out into the world for inspiration. And sometimes you see something and you're like, oh my god, that is it. Like, I would never have thought of that, but there it is. Like, and you don't have to copy it. And if you are gonna copy it and like steal it, it's a nice thing to do to acknowledge the person who shared their knowledge with you online, and thank them for the time they've put into, like, if they wrote a tutorial as to how to do this, make sure you share that tutorial, be nice to the artist that is helping you. But feel free to use other people's ideas. Like, there is nothing wrong with taking all the best options and tweaking them, especially if you're going to tweak them into something a little bit different that fits your character even better. That's wonderful. That is so great. And you're going to grow a lot more as a designer by getting other input, and not just from like showing your friends your drawings. Like, the usual thought is, well, I want to get better at something, I'm going to show a master and ask them what they think. And that's a good idea sometimes, but it's also pretty helpful, especially in my experience, just seeing what the masters are doing. Like, I'll go to like behind the scenes Chanel YouTube videos and see how they're putting sequins on, and like maybe they figured something out that I haven't, and you know, I don't need to go bother the head of Chanel to ask for, you know, recommendations on those kinds of knowledge things. But you know, you can just like you pick up little things if you're just paying attention all the time to how other makers are making things. And even if it's completely irrelevant, sometimes something will pop up and you'll be like, oh my god, I can see how they're using it there, but if I changed it like this, I could use it for my costume in a way that nobody's ever seen before, or that I've never seen before, or maybe they haven't seen before. And like, for example, I'm rambling, but I'm just going to keep going with this. I was buying foam for a mold project a couple months ago, and Smooth On puts flyers in their boxes, which is very smart of them, because then I get introduced to new content or new materials like this one. This one's called Glowworm. It's like I don't know, some kind of phosphorescent powder. And, you know, they've got like a glowing face and some glowing flowers and like, you know, whatever. But I saw this and I'm like, I'm making a mushroom familiar out of probably foam or silicone, and they are bioluminescent. They glow, and so I'm gonna get some of this stuff and see if I can make my little myconid thing glow without any batteries or LEDs. Like, how freaking cool would that be? Like, right? So I saved this flyer, and it's just been floating around my house. Like, my house is full of garbage that I'm saving for, you know, like even if you're not quite sure what you could use it for yet, like keep those things around. And that's why I have Pinterest, and I spend so much, like, people from last season of Craft Tag know that I am obsessed with Pinterest, and I'm not ashamed. Um, and I'll tell everyone how much I love it, because it's great as an organizational tool, but also as a way of finding new things that you didn't think you would have liked. Like, I didn't know I was gonna like that baggy look for the pants until I think I saw this image right here. Like, that is so cool, and it's like cute. I don't know, like, you think usually like, oh, tight leather pants or something. That's what adventurers wear, or, you know, just leather pants is the default. But like, this is cool. And like, I started realizing that, you know, that brown is a cool color, but I could felt the fabric to make these pants out of, and I could choose every fiber that ends up in those pants, like basically creating my own fabric. And I'll show you where I get that stuff too. But like, here's the little feet things I was talking about. And I am such a scatterbrain. I forget about the cool stuff I find all the time, because there is like literally 100 things to remember when you're trying to put a costume together before a deadline. And you just forget things. Even if it was the coolest idea ever, it'll whoop, gone. But if you've got it in Pinterest or you've got it in a document like the one I'm going to put together, you don't lose your ideas. So, especially when you're getting inspired and starting a costume, like, keep your ideas together. It's super, super, super helpful. But so what we're going to be doing here is, let me open this back up. Where'd she go? There we go. Let me try to figure out a way to make this visible for... Yeah. So we'll just move her over. Here's my little body. First we'll go through how I made this gradient. This gradient I've got up because I want to make sure I'm controlling the colors. I don't my go-to when I started doing Scrummy was that she was going to have a lot of earth tones, a lot of browns, greens, mold colors, oranges, maybe a little bit of red, like fall. But then as I decided that she had raised herself in the Underdark in Neverlight Grove, I decided to completely change her whole palette. And so I've got this black and white of Scrummy, but I need to draw her in the colors that she needs to be wearing. So I decided that this yellow is going to be my hot, like, highlight color, and then it's going to get into a really warm moss green. Like, this is like a green that's almost orange. And I could probably even get more rich with this. But then in the middle it goes to gray, because as we transition into our blues and purples, we want the very highlight of the purple to be almost fuchsia, but not. Like, we're gonna stay in with like ultramarine and maybe some like Prussian blue. If I'm a painter, or I started as a painter, so I'm gonna be using names that go with like oil paints. Just off the top of my head. Hi, Inez! I see you. But yeah, so her cloak, I'm going to want it to stay in with like this range here. And I haven't even shown you guys her cloak yet because it's an idea I had, and I scribbled it down on a big pad of paper and then accidentally threw it away somewhere. So we're going to be figuring that out right now, along with drawing the rest of her outfit. Here, let me move this around a little bit. Yeah! And so I've got that gradient up on this palette sheet. I'm just going to be putting all my ideas in this Photoshop document. And having this palette open with all the colors I'm including keeps me from drawing anything that's the wrong color, because I'm just going to be like eyedropping and then drawing. Whee! Like that. So I can't accidentally add a color in that wasn't a part of my plan. And then if I have this up when I'm going to order my supplies after we've drawn what we want to make, I can compare what's in my cart at the wool store and make sure it looks exactly like all the colors I'm intending to put in there, because especially something I see with a lot of cosplay, and not that this is bad, but this is something I wanted to improve upon for myself, is when you start a cosplay, you're like, oh, I want to be Spider-Man. Okay, he's blue and red. Okay, but like, if if you just go to the store and you find fabric that is blue or red, you're just going to get a blue and a red, and they might not harmonize together very well. They might look cartoony because they're so bright. They could be way too saturated. You might have even picked up a neon blue and not known it, and then your red's going to look dull. Like, there's a lot of things that can happen with color that will affect how people view the overall costume when it's done. And so really being intentional with your color choices and making sure that your fabric, your leather, your paint, your everything is going to end up back in this palette by the time it's done. So like, you could buy a fabric or a leather and then dye it to match. You could do what I'm doing and make your own fabric with felting, and then you get to actually mix all the fibers together and make your own color, which is super fun, by the way. You should totally do it. We are going to just have this open and pick from our gradient that we made and just start drawing on here. So like, I know I want that belt piece, this big belt piece, right? And I probably don't want it to be a bright color. So we're gonna pick from like this blackish green. And then maybe some blue. And I know that if this is my body and I want her to have a waist like this, I'm gonna need to bring this in about this far, right? Like, if I want her to look because I want her to look like gaunt and skinny, but like skinnier than I am, I'm gonna need a cincher right there. And that can be like a part of your underwear or, something like that, but what I'm gonna actually do is make this like a leather corset cincher thing, and it'll pull my waist in and make sure it's super tight against me so that I've got that negative shape, and you'll see why that's important to me when we start on the cloak. But yeah, let's do green here, and I really like the flaps that kind of just layer over each other. And then it's gonna have like kind of a fringe on top where it's not really made very well. It'll be a lot of hand stitching. And then we can even look at the notes that I wrote a year ago. What does that say? Past pet skulls. So right here I wrote that she keeps the skulls of her past pet companions that she's found in the Underdark on her belt for decoration. And Scrummy's chaotic neutral, so she doesn't really have the same thoughts as like most people do when it comes to like revering death, or for her, like Scrummy's she encourages death and decay because she knows that that's how life continues as a part of like Myconid philosophy, is that that's just what's needed, and she has no, like, negative thoughts tied to death. So that's why she's got pet skulls on her. And we're actually gonna pull from in the gradient while we're still planning. And then if I need to add white or black, like obviously the skulls aren't going to be green, but we can add white later. We just want to make sure that where we are adding white makes sense. So we'll use all our colors first. And so I'm going to draw the little bones on here too, because they're going to be the same color. And I'm going to tie them together and kind of be like a little shoulder, or a little chest piece of armor. And then you can see I've also got squigglies here. Let's see what I wrote. Yellow felt green lattice with bones is what it says here. And yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. So we'll take this yellow from way over there, and we will make a note that there's going to be like a piece of leather that just goes around. I'll kind of highlight that. And then kind of the way that some mushrooms have like those little capes of lace. They're really cool. I might be able to pull up a picture, because of course I have a book of mushrooms right here on the table. Let's see if I can find one really quick so you guys know what I'm drawing. Maybe not. Maybe they're really rare. Sorry about this, guys. Anyway, here's one. It's not the exact same thing, but it's kind of the same natural pattern. So you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. It's just kind of the shape that mushrooms make when they make those, This is the worst way to show you pictures. I'm so sorry, guys. But you get the idea. It's kind of like a lacy... You guys can Google this too if you want. But we're going to use that crazy yellow. Just to, like, show where these highlights are going to be, like as far as the color on top of the dark color. And obviously that's really loud looking. So we're going to try a little bit darker. Here, we'll even just take this green that's underneath and just kind of go back over it. Take it back down a notch, because that's some crazy, like, grass skirt looking stuff. We don't really want that. We only want it to be a subtle yellow. So now, this also helps us plan the overall look of the outfit later. Like, oh look, this is like you know, oh, we want yellow lace, right? Like, yellow felt lace, whatever. But if we just go and buy the yellow and then try to make it and put it on, we're going to be like, oh god, the yellow! You don't want that. You want to know that this yellow isn't going to overwhelm your whole costume. So this is where you get to test out and do fun stuff like that. And then we kind of want like a warmer brown too, so I'm going to pull from this gray in between the blue and the brown and just warm it up a tad. It needs to be less black so we can tell. Yeah. See, this is a much warmer. I'm actually gonna... This is not what you're supposed to do, but I'm just gonna put this color in our gradient just so we know that that's something that we want a part of the palette. And so we want... She's gonna have kind of like a turtleneck thing. not a turtleneck, but just gonna have kind of like a cap sleeve. I'm just going to fill this color in because that's the color of the leather we want. We want it kind of green, kind of brown, kind of mossy, kind of warm, but not like a warm saddle brown or anything normal. And then even, we probably know that the skirt and the shirt are going to be kind of one piece. So we can even bring that brown down into the green layers. Just to make sure, and just so we remember that this is bone, we'll add some little like white highlights here. Just so we start to get an idea. And that's still kind of within our palette. Like if you take that color I just put in and we just kind of put it on the end here, you can see what it's going to look like with everything else. And it looks pretty good, right? Like that's not going, it doesn't feel bad to look at. Science terms we use here on Craft Hags. I'm going to take a sip. Oh, hang on. Alrighty. And if you guys have any questions in the chat, I am trying to watch, so feel free to hit me with questions. Like Mini Terrain Domain says, are you drawing in layers or all on one layer? You can't see, but right behind my head, there I do have a layer menu right under here. And so I've got the gradient and the costume on one layer. I've got me on one layer. This little dot here is actually a part of my overlay because I hand drew my overlay and so I need to clean that off, but just so you know, that's not supposed to be on there. And so I can like flip these on and off and go back and forth, and like if I drew on here way too much and then I realized, oh, I lost my body, I can just be like, boop, there's my body. That's what I need to do. So yeah, and again, if you don't have Photoshop, I know Photoshop's expensive and a lot of people don't have access to this kind of technology all the time. Tracing paper over photos is great. And if you keep them nice and you keep them clean, they work fantastically. It's a nice, cheap way to get around that. And just to kind of show lighting and shape here, I'm going to add a little bit of dimension. Like I've got boobs. So we're going to show that the lighting is going to be a little different on top of the planes that stick out, like my boobs and my shoulders. And where are my boobs? Oh, see, my boobs are like down here. I was wrong. And obviously I can move those around with a bra, but we do want to make sure I'm actually designing something that will fit on my body later. So this is super personal all of a sudden, but we'll shade under my boobs so you know where so I know where they go. And then just so I don't look so flat, we'll also add some of the shadows like around the edges, like around my waist where it'll kind of disappear, stuff like that. And then here's my face. Let's make sure you know where my face is too. There's my face. Okay. So, next, I think we want to figure out what color these pants are going to be. I think, let's read what it says on pants. Yellow tan leathers stitched, red orange silk, green yellow felting. So that was when I used to think that I wanted fall colors for this. I've changed my mind, obviously, but I did have a plan here. So I think because I'm using so much of the accent colors from this end of our spectrum on top, I'm going to want to not bury myself in that one color, and I'll do something from over here for my pants. That way, the brighter colors and these accent colors are also where you tend to look, and the rest of this will just kind of be like a visual afterthought, we'll say. And so if we put this purple down here, I obviously want it to kind of poof out a little bit. And that looks weird, see? I don't like that. So we're gonna do a little bit more blue. See how this looks. And that looks a little better. Like, I like that blue up against the green a lot better than I like the purple up against the green. But it's also just a little... it's a little loud. And the thing with this is that you can slide the saturation down so that you're getting a lot more of a gray blue. Yeah, see, I'm putting this gray in here and it looks a lot better. It's less cartoony. I don't want to look like a clown. If I did want to look like a clown, that would have been a great choice, but I don't. We're even going to turn the saturation down more. Yeah, because that gray looks a lot better next to that green. Yeah. Ooh, Golthius has a really good point. Photoshop used to be a lot more expensive than it is now. I think it's about $20 a month or so to have Photoshop. It used to be like thousands of dollars, like a one-time payment. And they figured out that people just steal Photoshop off of torrent websites when you ask for that much money, and that a monthly subscription thing is a much better business plan. And I have been paying for Photoshop for a long time because of their nice new payment plan thing, and it's great. And you can access all of their technology that way. And yeah, I can't speak for the open source alternative that Golthius recommended, but I'm sure there are many other options. And there's pens and paper too. We can always use pens and paper. I don't like how light that gray blue is getting, so I'm going to turn down the black a little bit. Sorry you guys can't see my color choice. It's behind the craft tag sign. Most episodes won't be me drawing, so there will be a shot of the table and what I'm doing on the table, and there will be actual crafting action. Crafting action! And you won't just have to watch my little cursor moving around, I promise. It'll get better. But yeah, see, look, when we add gray, I really like how subtle that looks now. But it's still, there's a lot of color there, even though it's super subtle, you know? This is what we want. We want it to be kind of an afterthought. And let's kind of do the same thing with her shoes. We'll take from the purple, and we'll turn it down way gray and way dark, and draw on her little toe things. Lighten it just a tad. But I do want her feet to be pretty dark, just as far as the leather or whatever material I'm using. But it's not black. We know what black looks like, and that's way too dark. We want like this charcoal gray color with a little bit of that purple tone to it. So like a bluish slate gray will be what I'm looking for when I pick out material, which could be vinyl or leather or whatever I decide. And then the goofy part will be that my super pale little toes will be sticking out because of those little toe sock things. So just to make sure we know, like, visually what we're doing here, we're going to try to at least attempt to add a skin tone in here, because that is part of the palette. And that way, if I need to change the color of my skin at all, like to fit with the palette, or so that, I don't know, my face doesn't clash, that's super important too. And also, Scrummy's hair has changed in every drawing I've ever done of her, and I think that's just because I always picture Scrummy as me. So her hair is going to look like whatever my hair looks like at the time, but then she is going to have these ears, and those will be prosthetic rubber ears, and I'll show you guys where I get those. Let me make a note of that, or I'll forget. I can find my pencil. Cool. And so obviously our arms need to be handled here. And I'm just gonna cut this off. Whoops. I'm just gonna copy paste. Oops. And then copy this other arm over here, so I don't have to draw it again. And also so I don't mess it up. I don't want to draw the wrong sized arm. But yeah, we're gonna... The big change we're doing with this costume from the last sketch I did was that she's gonna have a cloak. And I will, I think, show you that now, because this is where we're kind of gonna have to add that in. So I'm gonna take a color out of my gradient here, and let's just do this. So you can kind of see what kind of arm we're doing here. Move that up there, and then go boop. And yeah, look. So now we'll be able to plan the entire cloak, and you'll be able to see how it hangs when I move my arms around. So, because I always planned her to have these big sleeve things, they're kind of just like big arm warmers that go all the way up. And they have these big mushroom shapes on the sides. And what did I write there? Felt, shrooms, pearls, and beads. So I was going to plan to do some felting sleeves and sew little beads and stuff on to add texture, like little shiny bits, kind of like little rotten colors, and some of them will be glossy, and so they'll look kind of slimy, but it'll all just be beads on felt, which is clean and nice. But I decided I really wanted her to have movement. So I'm going to be attaching the cloak to the bottoms of these sleeves. And we're going to be doing a shape like this. And so they'll stop here, and this will just hang in between these sleeves. And so it'll kind of just, it'll be like a incomplete, like, bat wing kind of look, you know? And we're going to play around with that right now. I really like these colors down here. I don't want to add more green because she's got so much green going on, and then her eyes, actually, this is a good point I need to add, is that her eyes are going to be this bright yellow. And if we have time, I'll show you the contacts I got for Scrummy, too. I don't know when they're going to arrive. And little heart eyes. Yeah, they're going to be about this color, with a lot of black in the middle. And then obviously is my pen not working? Oh, it's too small. Derp. She's gonna have, like, I mean, they won't be so goofy looking because she'll have, like, makeup that makes her look scarier, and then her eyes will kind of be in the shadows a little bit too. So it's not going to be the loudest yellow like that, but just so we understand where the focus needs to be, which is on my eyes. We want that color, we want nothing like this color to be around it. So as far as the back of the cloak goes, it's going to be attaching right here onto my sleeve, and then just be this big drapey piece. It'll probably drape down like this, actually, when my arms aren't fully raised. And drawing it out like this even helps with pattern making later, because you already have a visual of what it needs to do on your body. And so if you've got a dress form or a body double, or you're even just like draping it on your little sister or something, you can be like, well, it doesn't look like my drawing, so I'm going to keep moving this around until it does, and then it's great. Really helps you keep track of what you're doing. But I do want it to be... Let's just make our brush bigger so we don't waste so much time. I do want it to be about this dark, about this gray. Because I want those colors that are on her body to be the brightest thing on her. This is kinda almost gonna work like a backdrop. Like when you want to take a nice photo, you sit in front of a backdrop so that there's not a bunch of crap behind you, making it hard to focus on your beautiful face. And the same goes for here. We're gonna be... God, that face is so stupid looking. So, this isn't attached at the back at all. It's just attached to the sleeves. But what I'm gonna do is double it. So that there will be, there will be, like on the back, if her arms are out like this, it'll drape in between her arms. Like, say, here's my shoulders. But then I want to have another layer that comes off that I can pull up. So, like, let's say this is the layer that touches my back. And here's my little arms. This is hard to explain, I'm sorry. But this will flip over my head. And then, let me show you the idea I have here. Let's go back to our Scrummy board. Let's find this. This is kind of the look I wanted in the beginning, right here. But obviously, I've got other plans for my shoulders and my chest. I've got that bone thing. I don't want to, like, hide that, you know? But what I saw was this really cool coat. Just one! Look at that hood! Holy poops! So, this coat is so long. I want it! By the way, I might just be making one for everyday wear, because it is a gorgeous shape. And so we're just going to hold this up over here. And we're going to be like, alright, in the front, I'm going to do a new layer too, so I'm not drawing straight on top of all this. I really want her to be able to kind of hide behind a hood that's this shape. And so this way, we're kind of just playing paper dolls here. We're just going to see when it drapes, what's it going to cover up, what's it going to look like. And then obviously, since this is draped over my arms, this will all be covered too. And it's just going to be like a big circle thing, so it's just going to do something drapey down here. And this is the part that we'll have to see what it does on the mannequin before we can really decide what shape it needs to be. Obviously, it's not a big circle all the way around, but if you've ever built or seen a circle skirt, it's going to kind of be like that, but we're just putting our hands through the... I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like if you put a circle skirt on your shoulders and then just went like this, it's almost the same idea, but we want it to go over our head too. So the end result here is going to be like this back area. I think we'll just double it up so we know what we're drawing here. This is going to be this shape, and then we're going to double it up, but we want it to drape kind of in like a point like this, so we need a point near this end. And so we'll have our sleeve here and our sleeve there, and it'll probably do something like that. Or it might even be like this, because we want a lot of fabric to be able to sit over our head like this and make this really cool drapey thing. Right? So it's going to need to be pointy in the front. And this is where we will get out big sheets of paper or muslin and, you know, put it on and see how big it needs to be, and just like start playing with, you know, how it fits on your body. I don't like using muslin so much. I like using scrap fabric that I'm probably never ever going to use again, kind of thing, because like muslin can even be kind of expensive, especially if you're doing this on a budget. Craft paper even works pretty damn well for realizing what kind of shapes you're going to need to add or take away, and then you can just cut it, tape on more if you cut it too small, stuff like that. So we'll solidify the shapes in another episode for this cloak, but at least you guys will be able to see what it looks like and what my plan is for this cloak. And I'm just going to erase all this so we can make notes over here later. So here's where we're at right now. I'm going to fix her face just a little bit. There, now she's at least got a little bit more of a little grump smile. A grump smirk thing. But this is a lot of black, don't you guys think? So, if we get back into these grays and purples and start throwing them on here and deciding maybe this is what we want instead. Yeah, this is starting to look nicer. And then it goes with our palette a lot more now. This black cloak it's cool looking, but you know. And then we can add, once I actually design it, I can get like some sort of clasp here that will close this up so that it's a better shape. And then all this will kind of disappear because it's under shadow. But yeah, I really like that like gray purple. Like that's so underdark, and specifically Neverlight Grove, that's like, yeah, it looks good. And then we can go back to our gradient, and then maybe we want a little bit more blue. We could start playing with adding pattern, or like maybe just the tips down here I want to be more blue so that they kind of go with the pants that are down there. Maybe we turn this back part a little more blue, and then, I don't know, maybe up here, because complementary colors look really good together, and my eyes will be bright yellow, and I'll show you those contacts if you guys remind me. We really could get a lot out of putting a purple up next to my face. Like, so this really warm purple over here, that's where it's getting the craziest, warmest, brightest purple It's still not that bright, but it's because we're keeping it subtle. But then if I've got some purple up here, and then it transitions into this dark blue, we just get to see how it looks. And this was also almost exactly the process I used for making the Cathris cloak for C-Team, when I did the C-Team's costumes these last few months. Was I picked out all these colors because the Cloak of Stars is very specific in how it's very dark, almost black, but it is supposed to kind of look like a galaxy. But Chris didn't really want, like, a galaxy, you know, like, because that's pretty damn colorful. And so if we get this black going in here, we can really also start playing with how we want the makeup to look too when we've got it like this. Obviously with that bright color, having some dark makeup in here to make me look a little more evil and like bring that contrast right around the eye. It's gonna look so sick! Can't wait, you guys. Can't wait. I'm so excited. But anyway, so I really like this purple. And then when I draw that big, you know, like Millennium Falcon shape again, that the cloak needs to be, these will be little armholes, make little sleeves. And then I'll have to figure out like how it opens in the back or if it does. But then I can be like, well, the stuff that goes up next to my head is right here and it needs to be purple. And then this color kind of goes down in front of the sleeves, and then you can just start building like kind of a diagram of what this garment needs to look like. And that makes it so much easier to build it in the future. But just so you get kind of an idea of how I lay felt out, and just draw it out. And then I know that I want hot purple here, dark blue, black down there. Darth Danny is exactly what I'm going for here. But yeah, like we know so much more than we did when we started, now that we've just kind of doodled and drawn and figured it out. Oh man. So the face that I fixed is on the lower layer, so you guys get to see the alpha layer again. Now that we're taking the cloak off. And I'm gonna, whoops, cover this up again. But yeah, let me show you the context really quick, because that's like the most exciting part of all of this. Here's where this is, you guys have to understand, you're about to see some very expensive contacts, and this is the first time I've ever been able to afford these. I've been planning this costume for 2 or 3 years now, and thank you to the D&D channel for picking up my show and actually paying me to do it. I've also like disabled donations because D&D's paying me to do this, and I'm gonna put that money right back into the costume. But that means I can afford these crazy contacts, you guys. And I did have to go get an eye exam and a lens prescription from an eye doctor, and he was very confused, believe me. I'd also like to thank that doctor for being super patient with me while I told him that I needed him to measure me for contacts I wasn't going to wear for a few years, and I was only going to wear them for a few days and for a costume. So he was like, okay. But if you do order from a place like this, they will ask you for a prescription if they are concerned about your health and safety, which they should be. But so let me show you the ones I picked out. Or we can just look at all of them. This is 9mm Special Effects.com. They do a lot of work for movies and stuff. They're amazing. This guy custom paints all of these, and they look so freaking cool. But this is the one that we picked out for Scrummy. Like, so that hot, bright green yellow is where my eyes are gonna be, and it's gonna be so cool. And I really hope nothing like goes wrong with these. They still could. That's the thing, is like I could get these in and my eyes could be like, fuck no. But hopefully it's all good, and I get used to wearing them and I can see really well and stuff like that. That's the other thing you really need to start thinking about when you're planning a costume like this is, where are you wearing this? Where are you getting ready in this costume? Do you have a hotel? Are you getting ready in a bathroom? Are you sharing with a friend? Like, how much room do you have? Like, you need to make sure all of these things are in your mind when you're picking stuff out. So, like, if I'm going to order these contacts, I obviously need to make sure that I know how long they're going to take to make. I need to know how long they're going to take to ship to me. This guy custom paints these, so I couldn't find anywhere on his website where like his timelines are currently. I don't know how much spare time he has now. It could be like a week. It could be like 6 to 8 weeks. It could be months. I don't know. But make sure you're thinking of that when you're going to invest in stuff like this, so that you're not, there the day of the con or wherever you want to wear this costume and you don't have a thing because you didn't pay attention to how long it takes to get it. But I've ordered these already. I don't have a deadline for this costume, which is a really cool thing. I can wear this to any con I want later this year. It'll be done when it's done, and that's what we're going for this time, because I really want to make this like the best costume I've ever made. And we're going to take all the time in the world to plan and make sure it's right, and when it's done, it's done. And it'll hopefully be a lot better than anything I've ever made before, because I had the luxury of the time and the planning. But these contacts are going to be like the showstopper of this whole costume, and mostly everything else I'm buying is less money. And she doesn't have any big props or anything, so I don't have to budget for like this much foam and that much, stuff like that. Somebody in the chat said, do you have a con schedule for this year? I don't yet. I am keeping it pretty light as far as cons this year. I'm really only going to be going to cons that I'm working at, so if D&D needs to bring me to a convention to dress up as some character for them in the future, I'll be doing those sorts of things. PAX West, I know I will be at, because there's an Acquisitions Incorporated game, and I will be dressing the people on stage for that, including the C-Team, so it'll be lots of fun. That's not until September, though, so I've got plenty of time to work on this. It'll be great. But yeah, while we're talking about shopping, let me show you the felt I have picked out for this, because we already have our little gradient here. You can see it off to the side here. And I can just go back and look at the costume whenever I want. I can make sure that, that everything I've picked out matches my gradient, my color palette, make sure it's all exactly what I intended. So if we start at the bottom here, we can see I've picked out this warm yellow. That's going to represent kind of this browny yellow. And then this yellow, I'm getting like just barely any of it, because I might want to add like pops of color down in the bottom of the cloak, or I'll just decide. Maybe I'll just sprinkle it in like so subtly, like I'm talking a couple hairs at a time, to add texture or variation, stuff like that. Inez asks, Danny, have you ever had special effects makeup course or study anything? No, I haven't. I watched Face Off and I got really inspired and I started messing around with it. And I think I did like a zombie makeup in my bathroom once, and I wore it to the bar because I worked at the bar and it was zombie crawl night or something. And like I've practiced here and there, like just when I was gonna go out and needed to look crazy or something. But no, I'm all self-taught. I have invested in the classes from the Stan Winston Studio School. They have a great online program, and you can buy class by class, or you can do like a year membership and have access to all their videos, and that is such a good resource if you're really wanting to get into like movie level costumes and special effects, and they cover so many other things too, like puppet building, sculpting, like denture work. Like if you need crazy orc teeth, like they have all the info you need there. Go check it out. It's super cool. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So I've got my greens here, and you can kind of see if we click on one of them. Like this, it says moss, but obviously this is like the grayest green in the world. Like wow. But if we mix that in with our kind of louder yellows and this lighter, really warm green, we can get a really good moss green. And having that gray green to mix too is going to be great. Currently we're sitting at $70 worth of felt, which is a lot, I'll admit. So we can probably get rid of a few of these. Here's the purple that I've got planned for right above my head. And when you're ordering these, like one, I think is, let's see how much you're ordering. 100 grams. That's like a little small bundle, you know, and when you order, you'll start to see some of the sizes. We're gonna need a lot more of the dark blue though. Like let's look at this. This is like a really dark gray purple. I'm probably gonna need more of this than anything else because that's the main color of the cloak. And so I'll add a couple more of those and then take out something different that I can just replace that with. Like here, we've got a couple really dark blues here. We don't need that many choices. This one's so dark. That's so crazy. But maybe that's nice. Let's go look at the other one. What was that? Aubergine? Let's look at... No, that was... This one's so, like, such a hot blue. Like, you can... It's really dark, but you can still see how crazy pigmented that blue is. And I like that. I think that's a really cool color. So we're going to stick with Tanzanite. And then instead, we're going to get rid of... What is this? Midnight. This is just kind of a dull blue. Like it's almost black. We don't need it. We'll get rid of it. What color is it? Midnight. Let's get rid of Midnight. Remove. And then I've got some grays in here just to mix in. Think of it like you're buying paint. If you do go with the felting route. You're buying stuff that you can mix together, and so you'll only need a teensy bit of some colors and then a ton of other colors. But just think about that when you're buying stuff to make a big fabric piece. We also are going to be felting these pants, and probably this thing. So we're going to need a little bit more green than we have. So let's add one of those. This is going to be our main moss color, and these two we mix in to kind of get the gradient. Sapphire, this sapphire blue is so freaking loud. I don't know that I want it, because that's even like hair by hair, mixing that in with other fibers, it's going to be hot. Like we're going to have to like layer stuff over it to knock it back. I don't know that I want to deal with that. It's a really bright color. So we're going to get rid of sapphire. Let's look at this gray too, because we are going to be mixing gray in with our colors to keep them from getting too loud and clowny. But this is really light. Like, if you look in here, we don't ever get a gray that is anywhere near this light. You know, like if you're on the gradient scale of grays, there's like 100% gray and like 0%. I mean, like from black to white, sorry. This is super close to white for how dark our whole palette is, except for when we're hitting those yellows. The yellows are the only bright spots, or light spots even, so we're going to get rid of this gray, because I don't think I even can think of a place where I would layer it in. We can get rid of that. This ultraviolet is a super cool color, and because it's still pretty dark, it'll come in handy with making these pants pop. And I can put it up near my head for the cloak, just to keep that other purple, this purple, from getting too, you know, much. But we still don't even need very much of those. We like tanzanite. Let's look at aubergine one more time. Yeah, that's a super good neutral purple. Like, it's kinda gray, kinda not. We like that. That we can layer over these other loud purples. Let's look at Storm, because it's almost the same color as aubergine. Yeah, I don't think we need that. We don't need both of them anyway. So, because we've got this super, super dark blue in our basket, I don't know that we need another super, super dark purple. So let's just get rid of the super dark one and... Oh, well, I have 4 in here already, so maybe Maybe what we'll do is do 2 of each, because I seem to really like both of them. And then Storm and Petrol look pretty much the same, so let's just investigate those really quick. That's a grayish purple that's kind of light. That one's Storm. And then Petrol. Grayish blue, it's kind of light. So, I think what we'll do is just take out... They're both the same price, too, so that doesn't matter. We'll take out the Storm. So now we're getting smaller here. We're down to $64 because we've kind of added and subtracted at the same time. And that's fine. That's about how much I would spend on a costume's worth of felt anyway. And plus, if we don't use this, like, I have got a huge pile of leftover felt in all the other colors. And so eventually, after doing so many of these, I'll just have like a ton of felt to choose from, and I might not even need to buy felt anymore for a while. Which is super fine with me. I'd rather have way more than way less than I need. And $64 isn't that bad. I mean, especially because I do have a budget for this costume. I can invest a little bit. It's fine! And then this is the place where I like to get my silk gauze. And that is the stuff, Washmatic. Good thing you, yeah. I do wet felting, like Nuno felting specifically, with a sander, a little plate sander. It's going to be a whole episode. I'll show you guys how to do that again. And we'll drape the whole garment and plan out the colors and lay it out and all that. But this is where I get my silk gauze. This is dharmatrading.com. I really like them as a company. They seem to be pretty aware of where they get their stuff and, you know, stuff like that. I'm really excited to show you guys the sander, by the way. I see you guys talking about it in the chat. It's so much easier than rolling. It's the best. It's like I found a way to cheat. It's the coolest. I can't wait. But yeah, they have all sorts of different silk fabrics, which you need a natural fabric to put the wool on, or it won't stick. And there are ways around that too, but I'll get into that later. But they have all sorts of stuff. Usually they've got really nice prices. They have velvet, organza, taffeta. I really like the gauze though. That's this stuff. It's the lightest. And especially when you're planning a costume like this and you're not sure what kind of heating or cooling is going to be available to you, you want to make sure that you aren't going to overheat, especially if you're going to go by yourself. sometimes if you have a friend handy, they can like hold the backpack full of like your water and your phone and stuff like that. But I really like uh, making sure that I can take care of myself if I'm going to be in a costume all day on a location somewhere, whether that's for a job or just for a convention or a party or Halloween or whatever. Uh, LARPing, especially, you probably need to think about this a lot more. Is it going to be hot out? Is it going to be cold? Do you need to bring layers? Do they need to look good on your costume? Stuff like that. But so what I really like to start with a really light fabric, and so that's why I go with silk gauze, is because once I put the wool on, it's already so thin, and I can thinly layer the wool and keep it super light and breathable. So I've got this big, crazy cloak, but I'm not gonna sweat to death. You know, that's super important, especially like being comfortable at wherever you're gonna wear this is like probably the most important thing. Because if you go to all this work and you're just, you know, sweating to death and you're like soaking through your costume, it's, you know, that's not a fun day, even if you look great. Like, I am all for planning as early as possible for this to be a comfortable costume. But I just wanted to show you guys where I get my silk gauze and stuff like that. Because I know it can be hard to find. And they have a lot of dyes and other stuff that you would probably like to dig into for costuming. Really great site. But yeah, where are we at on our to-do list here? Oh yeah, so as far as ordering stuff, you do want to make sure you know what the shipping times are and stuff like that, and how, whoops, that's not what I wanted at all. How long it's going to take you to actually receive all this stuff so that you have time to make it. Because it's not their fault if you didn't plan enough time for them to get you what you needed, and then you'd actually do stuff with it. Oops. So let's see where we're at here. What I need to do next, really, is to start making a list. Kind of like how I did on this sheet a year ago. But when you do it in a big... I'm gonna fix her hair really quick. She looks awful. Just give her something. I don't know, maybe she'll have a bun. Whatevs. Oh yeah, I will show you really quick before we get into the... to-do list. Where I get my prosthetics! This is mostlydead.com. If you order from them, they ship so freaking fast. Like, without the crazy, what was I gonna say? I just had a brain fart. They don't make you pay for super fast shipping. They just have super fast shipping, which is super awesome. And the people there are very nice. And they put a little fake bug in your box when you order from them, and it scares me every single time. But I think that's really funny. But yeah, this is the place where I found the most variety of good ears, I'll say. Like, there's not bad ears and good ears, but I tend to prefer ears or prosthetics in general that have a ton of detail. And a lot of times the elf ears and stuff that I see, they're kind of more, or you know, they don't have as much of like the texture and the crazy ear shapes that are inside of normal ears. A lot of times it's just kind of a simple curve shape, and like, that's fine. You can, if that's all you have access to, you can always paint on texture and shading and add your own detail that way. But I really like the selection they have here. And so I've already ordered these ears. I have them somewhere. and after I clean my house, I'll be able to show you. But these are the ones I got. They look super cool. They are big. And so because I'm trying to be a gnome, everything I'm adding to myself, I want to make it look like it's on a smaller person. And when body parts are on smaller things, they tend to just be bigger in proportion. So, like, that's why I have the huge eyes, is because, like, when you're a baby, your eyes are smaller and all you can see is the colored part because your eyeballs are the same size, but your head's smaller on the eyeball. So, if it looks like there's a bigger eyeball in my head will look smaller. And that's a really cool way to cheat. I mean, people use that in illustration too. If you're gonna make a gnome or just a small creature of some kind, you want it to look cute or small or something like that. You make the eye bigger, the pupil bigger, the ears bigger, things like that. And so these ears are gonna be, they're not massive, obviously, but you know, they stick out and kind of come down in a gross way. And I know she's a gnome, and gnomes have like a specific kind of ear, but I really like the style of these because they're a little dumpy, like a little gross. Like they're not hot, you know, like it's not like a sexy elf ear that most people normally think of. So I'm really excited to put these on for you, and I'll be doing a makeup episode too. I don't know if I mentioned that, but after I get the contacts, I also have stuff to put on my teeth to make my teeth look a little rotten, or maybe even missing a tooth, and that'll add so much to this costume, and you're really gonna get the sense that she hangs out with things that rot a lot. So, like, maybe her teeth are gross, and her eyes will be bright yellow, and then the ears, and then we'll have to figure out what to do with my hair. But I will do all that on the stream at some point. It'll be really cool to watch. And it'll be cool to practice. Practicing your makeup is super crucial before you get to the day of wearing it. You want to have done it already. You don't want to wake up and be nervous to figure out the makeup last second. But yeah, that's where I get my ears and stuff for everything I do. Like if I'm dressing an elf, if I ordered some ears from there that were for Kate Welch, who is a halfling, but I ended up really liking the werewolf ears a lot more than the ones that were called halfling ears. I didn't think they fit with the character, but like there's so much to choose from on there. You can really find something that works with almost anything. But yeah, I think we should start making a to-do list, because you want to make sure that you can take every part of this sketch and identify what needs to be done to get it there. So obviously, we're gonna, let's back out of this a little bit, and we'll do this. We'll start a new layer. And so we know we need contacts. We've got that done, but I'm gonna write it down just for funsies, so that, like, in case they don't come and I forgot because I wasn't thinking about it, you really don't want to not have that in your mind. So it's just good to write everything down. Contact lenses. And you can make yourself like a Word document or something else, or even just a normal list on the side. But just keeping track of everything you've got to do is super crucial. We know that I need some sort of leather for this like green. So I'm gonna make a little this is gonna be a mess. I'll organize it later, but just so you guys know, we're gonna have, let's just say, olive colored leather. So and then the bones, I have these bones already. They're little jaw bones. But I need to clean them, I need to seal them, I might need to paint them so they look grosser than they are. I don't want them, like, I want to make sure there's no bugs in them because they've been laying outside for a couple years, stuff like that. but I need to have all that in my mind as a part of everything that needs to get done before I can wear this thing. So I need to do like prep jaw bones. That's not a W. There's a W. And then we'll get into like actual material lists later too, because like you can't just say, oh, I need to prep the jawbones. Like you need to figure out what sealant you're putting on that. Do you need to order the sealant? How long does it take to get that? Is that something you can get at the store? Do you need to figure out a way to seal bones? Like research time takes forever sometimes. You really need to get all of that handled and down on paper so that you're not like, oh crap, I need to figure this out, and it's like a week before your thing, you know. And I only know that because it's happened to me a billion times. But yeah, we'll get into all the details later. I do need to figure out where I'm gonna find little, let's make this a color I can read. I do need to get little bones. Skulls! And I wanted little pet skulls. This is Scrummy. I see some of you asking in the chat. Sorry I haven't been looking at the chat as much as I wanted to, but yep, this is Scrummy. She's my personal D&D character, and we are building her from the beginning. And part of the beginning was that we found out that she likes to adorn her little belt with the skulls of little animals that she has kept as companions in the past, just so, you know, so she can remember them. She can remember her little friends, you know. So, like, I need to figure out, am I getting real skulls? Are those legal here? Are they legal where I'm going? Can I put those in my luggage and expect them to survive the trip? Is TSA going to take that from me? Those are things you all need to be aware of when you're thinking of things like this. And like, let's say part of the lore is that I've always had falcons as pets, and then I keep their skulls on my, you know, falcon skulls are illegal. You can't handle them or touch them or sell them or buy them in most places. And that's just something you would need to know if you were going to go out onto the internet and try to purchase falcon skulls. Like, this also happens with, there's a certain kind of glue that I really like called barge. A lot of people use it for a lot of things, especially foam building, but in California you can't get certain kinds of barge without a certain license and stuff like that. So like you definitely need time and research to make sure you're doing all this the way that is going to be safe for you and so that nothing happens to your costume later. Like if you don't want to go to jail because you put some falcon skulls on your D&D costume, that's a really dumb reason to go to jail. So just be aware of things like that when you're planning every little bit here. And then this will be felt. This will be felt. This will be felt. And this will be felt. So if I just draw a bunch of lines out here. Boop, boop, boop. Whoop! Bye, felt! And we already did that. We already picked out our whole palette. It's all in the cart. We just have to press buy now. And then, what else? Oh, these shoes. Gotta figure out how to make these shoes. We're probably gonna want to make these out of like faux leather vinyl or leather. Again, up to you. If you don't like using animal products for your costumes, you definitely don't have to. There are lots of really cool faux leathers and suedes and vinyls and things that look like hide. Excuse me. And you can probably find something close to what you're looking for, and even if it's not like realistic enough, or you know, like if you go to Joann's and they've got like some couch vinyl that's kind of like a gray. Like, we want like a purplish gray, but maybe you can find a way to change the color or the texture or the surface of what you're using to make it what you need, but you need to decide all that ahead of time. And especially if you're like dressing somebody else, knowing what their preferences are as well, because before you even think about how you're going to build it, making sure everybody's cool with everything you're using is really important too. So I probably will use leather for this, just because I think I already have leather that's this color. So I'll do this. I'll say leather. And then that leaves me a note and reminds me that I do need to figure out if the leather I have is going to be suitable for shoes. Like, is it going to protect my feet enough? My toes are going to be out. Maybe I need to turn this more into a sandal and less of like a toe sock. Or like put something hard underneath if I am going to use really soft leather. I just need to research that and figure that out. But that is something we need to make sure we save time for. Oh, also, we forgot my little familiar. So let's draw him on here. His name is Salt, by the way, because salt is my favorite thing in the world. It's like my favorite food. I put salt on everything. And so Scrummy's little familiar, his name is Salt. And so I have to figure out how I'm going to make salt. Cool thing is, I already know how I'm going to make salt. I found this really cool tutorial. And I might use the lights, I might not. I don't know. I'm going to have to try this tutorial at least once, knowing that it probably won't go well, and test out everything that they tell me to do and make sure that's what I want. I might even change the species of mushroom just so we get like a cooler shape. But this tutorial has a lot of really cool info about how to use silicone and light, like LEDs and stuff. It's really great. I can post a link to this later if anybody's interested. Yes, Salt is my mushroom familiar. Oh, Lady Gamer's Night. Hi. Are you going to use those little felt arm warmers you made before? Yes, but no. I'm just going to be redoing them because they need to be like up to here. And the ones I made before were a little short. So, for anybody just joining us, I see a lot of people are just getting here. We are designing a costume from the beginning, and so I'm going through my whole process here. This costume is my personal D&D character named Scrummy. She's a gnome warlock who lives in the Underdark and serves Zugtmoy, and she was raised with myconids, so she's very mushroom-based, lots of darks, and I've based all of her palette and coloring on the what it recommends in the book for Neverlight Grove, just kind of the colors that are in the environment there. So yeah, that's what we're doing, and I've been through a lot of my old drawings for Scrummy, and I explained a little bit of her backstory, and started drawing out pieces for the costume, and kind of explaining how I'm thinking when I'm planning stuff, and like what to consider, like am I gonna be too hot in this costume? Is somebody gonna be around to hold my giant axe? Stuff like that. Making sure that I am planning this as hardcore as I can to make sure I set myself up for success here. And I'm just sharing that process with you guys. So hopefully this will help you plan your costumes in the future, or maybe bring some new ideas to the table for you. I want to just sink home really quick how important Pinterest is! Because, like, yeah, this costume, like, obviously this doesn't look like a very Scrummy thing, but this is the coolest shape for a hood, and I put that on Scrummy over here. And here's a little diagram of what the cloak needs to look like as a flat object when I felt it, because I will be Nuno felting her her cloak and her pants, and probably her little waist cincher too. Somebody said, "Is your character a drow?" No, she's just a normal gnome, little gnome. I'm going for a rogue dark elf, by the way. That's super cool. And by the way, if any of you are making costumes or anything crafty that has to do with D&D, please tag the Twitter at craft tags is where I'm at, and I will gladly retweet any of the cool stuff you guys are building. Just tag me and tell me what you're doing, and I'll share it with the world, because I want to make sure that Craft Tags is a fun, positive community where you guys can come together and talk to each other about how recommend ways to help each other through costumes if you guys are having problems. And because I really would have liked a community like that when I was learning. And not that there aren't communities like that, but especially for costuming or even just D&D fashion. Like, if you find a really cool D&D t-shirt and you think everybody needs to see it, and, like, you don't really, know who's gonna care on your Twitter, like, hit me up with on the Craft Tags Twitter, and we'll all just be like, look at that, that's so cool! Because I know a lot of people aren't, like, into this, like, kind of niche of D&D interest. But that's what I want Craft Tags to be for everyone, is a place where we can all share our interests like this. So, right? Lady Gamers Night has the right idea. D&D fashion is kind of a passion of mine, honestly. I really want, like, not just the gamer lifestyle, but mainly, like, tabletop gaming and D&D and, like, even just fantasy worlds in general. Like, I wish that was more visible in how we dress ourselves every day. Like, I'm not talking about wearing your LARP costume to the grocery store, but, like, finding cool ways to, like, feel like your character every day, and even just, like, in an empowering way, or, like, I think there's a lot of cool design and aesthetic that we could be bringing into our daily lives too, kind of like Disney bounding, but D&D bounding. Like, that's what I want, and I want that shit to be in vogue. I want fashion shows. I want, like, I want people to, like, look at me and be like, oh, she obviously, like, she's got something else going on in her life, and I think I want to hear about it. Like, that'd be cool. Anyway, I'm rambling. But yeah, we've got about 10 more minutes left before I've got to go, because Dragon Talk with Greg Tito is coming up, and they're going to be doing Lore You Should Know and all fun stuff like that. So if you've got any questions for me, hit me in the chat right now, and I will answer your questions. By the way, I would like to, again, thank Sirenscape. They are super cool, and they have a lot of cool sound sets, not just for this show, but for your D&D games. They're super, super helpful, and they really up your immersion during the game. Let me make sure. Oh yeah, there was a big thing about how we didn't know what Scrummy's skin tone was gonna be yet, but I think oh my god, Greg Tito! Greg Tito says, how are you so awesome, Danny? I don't know, man. I don't know. Not as awesome as you, though. Anyway, so we might have to look into some skin paint, and I'll go over that later, probably in the makeup episode. That'll be a lot of fun too. Let me tell you about some of our plans for this season. I'm obviously going to be felting, because her pants and some other pieces of her costume are felt. And you've all seen that before, but I'll go over it again. I'll share all my hacks. It's way easier than you think it'll be. It's the greatest. I'm going to be making Salt, the little mushroom familiar. I'll be going through that tutorial I showed you earlier, where we make the little dude, and we'll have, like, a little moss shelf that he sits on that, like, magnets to my shoulder or something. We'll figure out how to make him stay up there and stand up, and maybe he'll be like a cluster of mushrooms. I don't know. Maybe we'll be making a bunch of mushrooms. And then we'll obviously be trying out this super cool phosphorescent powder stuff and see if that works, and maybe we'll need to do an LED instead, because maybe that won't work like we thought we would. But We'll be going through that for a whole episode. We'll actually be doing a lot more design work on her cloak. I kind of want to have gills. You know how like mushrooms have those like things underneath of them that are like gills on a fish? I kind of want to see if we can put some of those textures in the felt on my cloak so I kind of look like I'm wearing a huge mushroom, because that would be super cool to me. And when I say that, I mean like these sorts of shapes. And then like maybe they'll like frill out. Or we could do some of that lattice work kind of stuff, like some of those lacy mushrooms that kind of have their own capes, you know, like there's so many things we can do. And we'll just be throwing stuff on a dress form and playing with shapes and probably trying stuff on too and seeing how it looks. And I might look awful, you guys will have to tell me. And then we'll be doing the shoes. I want to make those little sock booty things out of this gray leather or some kind of vinyl, and we'll figure out how to make comfy shoes. I don't know, but I'll also be making the shirt. I'll be attaching those jawbones as a chest piece. She's probably going to need some jewelry. I don't know. We'll get there. You know? Somebody in the chat says, I just made a pauldron out of craft foam and it turned out super cool. Dude! I love craft foam. Like, you can make so many things out of, like, the floor mats that you get, like so many shapes. Like if you look at Dinar's armor that I made for the C-Team stuff just a couple weeks ago, that was all floor mats. Excuse me, I'm burping tea. I'm a monster, I'm sorry. Somebody said chainmail jewelry? Don't even get me started. And the thing is, if we finish Scrummy and there's like nothing left to do, because this is currently going to be a 20 episode season, we can always start another character. But it'll be super cool, and like I'll be digging into the lore more and finding more ways to put Scrummy stuff into this costume so that just every inch of Scrummy is like Easter eggs from her backstory and where she's from and something she picked up in the last adventure, stuff like that. What else are we doing? Oh yeah, and the makeup. Don't forget the makeup stream. I'll be putting in those crazy contacts I showed you guys earlier. It's gonna be super cool. Oh look, Crystal says there is now a Craft Hags Discord. Check it out on my Twitter. Crystal has been a longtime fan and is so freaking cool, you guys. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you. Somebody said, who is her patron? Zugdmoy is her patron. Scrummy serves Zugdmoy, and kind of where she's at right now is that she's in the middle of trying to figure out how she's going to control her patron, because the whole thing with Scrummy is that she's chaotic neutral, but she's got plans. Like, she's serving Zuggy, but she thinks she could do it better, basically. Scrummy has plans for the world, and like, you don't really know what they are, and Scrummy kind of doesn't even understand her plans fully either, but she knows that somehow she needs to preserve the Myconid way of life, which is how she was raised, and save them from Zuggy, but also she kind of likes some of what Zuggy's doing. Like, and I'm talking about the Out of the Abyss adventure. There's a lot of possibilities with how that could go, and I'm honestly still waiting for a game where I can play her and figure that stuff out, because that's where she has room to grow currently. But so she's kind of evil, kind of not. She's a really fun character, and she's kind of all over the place. By the way, Crystal said check out her Twitter, which is at Crystallis Aurora, and she's made a channel for posting your creations, guys. So you guys need to make the cool D&D stuff, even if it's like a necklace. Like, please share with us. We want to see. We want to share what we're doing with each other, and make this into a cute little Craft Hags family. But yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up just a couple minutes early, just to make sure Mr. Tito has plenty of time to get prepped. And this is my first time streaming to the D&D channel, so I want to make sure that I don't mess it up or anything. But thank you again. I'm working on being better at posting to the Craft Hags Instagram, so please bear with me with that, but currently I'm all over the Craft Hags Twitter, and then I'm at Danny Hartel if you want to just talk to me about anything. I'm always on there. I'm also on Misclicks on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. and I play a different character named Wiley, and I'm playing some of the Unearthed Arcana class, the Mystic class. It's super fun and super strange, but like I make it work. It's cool. But yeah, hit me up on all those places. Show up on Wednesdays for Misclicks. We have a ton of fun there too. That group is so much fun to play with. But yeah, stay tuned. We've got a lot more cool stuff coming. So yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye. Thanks for such a great first episode. Season 2!